Welcome back, everybody. Hello. This is episode 2 of Watcher of All Things. My name is Kiki. I'm very excited to be back. So happy to have you join me. It's been a big week. I mean, it's award season and I feel like there's every day new reviews coming out, new info about upcoming projects, and, everything we love to see. Of course, today's Friday, January 26th when I'm recording this, and, you'll hear this on the Monday. So by now, you've probably seen the Oscar nominations, you've seen the snubs, you've seen the surprises of people getting nominated. Just a crazy week and lots to talk about, and that's what this week is going to be all about. Today we're going to talk Oscar nominations and we're going to have a review. I'm going to talk about Society of the Snow, which I'm very excited about. I watched it on Sunday night, so I've had a few days to sit with it. Same with the Oscar nominations. They came out on Tuesday during the day, and I've had a few days to sit with it. I've watched some other people talk about it. One of my favorite TikTokers or content creators, Cinema Joe, highly recommend checking him out. He made a lot of good points, and I find he's a good gauge of, me not feeling crazy. When I see stuff, I feel like everybody has those reviewers that they listen to or watch, and they're very similar to their taste. And sometimes you think you're being ridiculous, like thinking something like, oh, I don't think that was that great. Then you watch your favorite reviewer without knowing what they thought. You go in, you watch or listen to it, and they thought the same thing, and you feel very vindicated. And yeah, I think I had a lot of similar feelings about the Oscars. Happy Friday for me. Unfortunately, it's Monday when this is going to be released, so I'm sorry ahead of time. And let's get right into it. There's so much news. I had to really pick and choose this week of what I was even going to talk about because, so much stuff came out. I'm going to start with Dune Part 2 is really kicking up the marketing. They put out some new posters this week, and IMAX tickets are going on sale for February 25th. You can go to the IMAX fan first screenings, which is really cool. I actually went to that for the Batman, and it was really fun. Sometimes you get a free thing, like a poster or whatever it is, or I got a little comic book. Yeah, so check that out if that's something that interests you, because it's definitely worth it. You get to see it, a week early, and for a big movie like that seems definitely worth it to me, because that will be the talk of the town for quite a while. I think Dune Part 2 will be everywhere when it comes out. There's going to be the hot ones, the Tonight Show, all of the marketing. So yeah, really kicking it into gear. They put out the floating heads poster, which is very widely criticized, or it's a very hot topic. The floating head poster, which Marvel and some big franchises, all the big blockbusters, they have to. You got to do a floating head poster. People want to know every single person that's in these, and I think there can be good ones. I actually think, if you haven't seen it, go check out the ones that came out for Dune this week. I actually think they look really good. And I think for Part 1, I think the floating head poster was actually pretty good. I don't have problems with them. I think there has been some projects in the past that have done floating head posters that have not worked and look very bad and standard. Marvel, I'm looking at you with all of the Spider-Man movies. I think all of the floating head posters for all of the Homecoming trilogy were pretty bad. But then actually for the Avengers movies, I think the floating head posters are actually pretty decent, weirdly. But I think, Dune, remarkable. I think great poster. I'm really excited. My friend Seamus and I were just talking about that. They're going to put Part 1 back in theaters in IMAX, I believe, before Part 2 comes out. And I would be really down to go to that, because I didn't get to see Part 1 in IMAX, and that's something I really regret. I was still at university, and they don't have an IMAX screen. It's a Cineplex, so they do like the VRX or whatever it is, which is their version of IMAX, but I didn't get to see Dune in that format. So I would really love to go and see Part 1 in IMAX on the big screen. I've watched it a few times, at home. I've only seen it once in theaters, so looking forward to that. I think that'll be really good. And I think Part 2, I've seen a couple of early reactions, and people are saying it like, to no surprise, it's a masterpiece. It's, one of the best sci-fi films, but I feel like sometimes when early screeners or reporters or journalists or reviewers get to go to an early screening, the gauge can be a little shifted, because I feel like their gratitude is very high, and they're very happy that they get to go to this amazing screening. So, I'll wait and see, but I have no doubt that it's going to be great, to be honest. After looking at all of the trailers and everything we've seen so far, it might be the movie of 2024. I think it very much could be. One really interesting thing that I completely forgot was happening, the Michael Jackson biopic called called Michael. It's coming out next year, 2025. We got our first look at Jafar Jackson, is it Michael Jackson's nephew? I don't think it's his son. I think it's his nephew that's playing Michael Jackson. So we saw the first picture of that. It's a black and white photo where he's on his, he's rehearsing and he's on his tippy toes. So that's pretty cool. I mean, I'm not a massive fan of biopics. Bohemian Rhapsody was really weird. I was not a fan of that. Yeah, that one. I think I rewatched it once with my parents and I still wasn't a fan of it. Rocket Man I really liked. I don't know. Biopics are pretty hit or miss for me, to be honest. Sometimes I think they just glorify the person too much, even though they were kind of a crappy person. Elvis, the Austin Butler one, it was okay. It wasn't really. I don't know. It was more about his manager than him, to be honest. But I thought it was okay. Baz Luhrmann can be a bit much. He can be a bit much. So we'll see what happens with that. It's coming next year, so look out for that, I guess. We'll wait until there's a trailer and try and judge by that. Another piece of news, Christopher Nolan's Tenet returning to movie theaters, including 70mm IMAX screens. Boy, oh boy, did my ears shoot up when I heard this. I talked about last week that Tenet, I was talking about Asteroid City and how I think every director has a movie where they really fully lean into their style. They fully just go for what they're known for, and it can almost be a kind of meta thing. And I think Tenet was that for Christopher Nolan. And I know, critically it wasn't that loved, but I enjoyed it, even though you can't understand a thing of what's going on. And like that Peloton instructor said, I have no clue what's happening. I need someone to explain this. She was not a fan of it, but that's going to be coming back in certain theaters. Variety article says, IMAX, digital and 70mm film screens for 1 week only starting February 23rd. The screenings held across the U.S. and in select international markets will be accompanied by exclusive footage of Dune Part 2. Oh, that's really cool. I didn't know that. Which debuts a week later on March 1st. Tickets for Tenet are on sale now. Yeah, I might go check that out because I saw it. Tenet was the first pandemic movie I saw. That was June of 2020, and I think Canada actually got it before the States. I can't remember, but that was my first pandemic movie. That was pretty crazy, and it was really fun to be back in theaters and for a Nolan movie. And I feel like outside of the pandemic, it could have done well. I mean, people love Nolan. I feel like it was only really Nolan fans going to see it. I didn't think there was no word of mouth possibility of, you got to go see this crazy movie. But then again, it critically was not that well received. So I feel like word of mouth is hard to spread when the movie's not doing that well with the critics. Like, who's going to go want to see, let's go see this movie that has mixed reviews and then it makes $1 billion. Who knows? And it's not like it's a family movie like, Super Mario Brothers. That could be interesting. Are we going to see like pandemic movies that didn't do well? Are all these movies just going to be re-released? Because I don't know if these count as pandemic movies. Kind of do. I mean, Disney re-released Soul, Elemental, and something else. I can't remember the three movies. I know Soul is out right now. Is that going to be a thing now that we see pandemic movies be re-released because they want to make their money back? Like, is Disney trying to make their money back? Is Warner Brothers trying to make their money back? That could be cool because there was a lot of movies that went straight to streaming that you're like, I wish I saw this in a theater. And, the opportunity to get to see it in IMAX again, depending on what it is, or see it, whatever, just in a big dark room on the biggest screen possible. I think that's actually a really great idea. So kudos to them. I know they're probably just doing it for monetary reasons, of course, to try and make their money back because most of those movies bombed. I don't think Tenet did that well. I feel like Soul and Elemental maybe didn't do that well. I'm not sure, but we'll see what happens. That could be something to definitely keep an eye out for a little while. Now, moving on to the news, this is a good segue to get into what was really the big thing of the week, and that is the Oscar nominations. They came out on Tuesday. I was at work, so I didn't get a chance to look at them right as they were coming out. I had to wait until, my lunch break. very mixed reactions online, I have to say. Some people were very mad. Some people think there were some very unjustified snubs, which I agree with. I'm going to get into, I'll go through all the categories. Obviously, I'm going to have more to say about certain categories because let's be real, I haven't seen animated short films or, live action short films. I don't really have that much to say about those. All I'll say is congratulations to them. I'll still read out all the categories. So I'm on the Oscars.org website. You can go and look at the full list there for the 96th Academy Awards 2024. So actor in a leading role. Here are the nominees. Bradley Cooper for Maestro, Coleman Domingo for Rustin, Paul Giamatti for The Holdovers, Cillian Murphy for Oppenheimer, Jeffrey Wright for American Fiction. I feel like there's not tons of surprises in there. Maybe. I mean, I'm disappointed personally that Zac Efron didn't get in for The Iron Claw. It was probably his career. I mean, it was his career best performance. He was phenomenal in that movie as Kevin Von Erich. Yeah, so I'm a little disappointed. I am part of the Iron Claw Nation. That was a little sad, but also, I think a little surprising was no Leonardo DiCaprio for Killers of the Flower Moon. I feel like people were kind of just assuming he would get that. I mean, personally, I don't think his performance was that mind-blowing. I think with Leo, he's always so solid. I'm going to say this about another performer later, but we get so used to them just being so great in everything they're in that we just kind of take it for granted later because we assume that's them not trying or them not having to do that much, where they're just always performing at a super high level. So I don't know, it could be said that maybe Jeffrey Wright doesn't get in, but I'm yet to see American Fiction, and I think Jeffrey Wright as well is a great actor in everything he's in. He was, a fantastic Commissioner Gordon. I think he was even good in French Dispatch, Asteroid City. He does lots of good voice work. He was in Westworld. He's great in that. I loved him in all of the Daniel Craig Bond movies. So good for him. I mean, within this category, who do I think is going to win? I think it's pretty obvious it's going to be Cillian Murphy. He's just racked up all of the awards so far, and it's for me, it's Cillian Murphy or Paul Giamatti. I love Paul Giamatti and The Holdovers, but those are two very different films, and I think Cillian Murphy really, really had a lot to lead. There's such a huge ensemble in Oppenheimer, and he had to lead that massive crew and be the focal point when people are going to be distracted by knowing absolutely every performer in that film. There's Josh Peck hitting the button. There's Jack Quaid. There's tons of people. So, I mean, good for all of them. I haven't seen Rustin or American Fiction. I'm hoping to see them soon because they've just released near me, especially American Fiction just came out at the theater that I usually go to. So I might go check that out. Next is actor in a supporting role. This one was also, I don't know, maybe a little surprising to some, but we have Sterling K. Brown for American Fiction, Robert De Niro for Killers of the Flower Moon. The obvious winner in my eyes, Robert Downey Jr., Oppenheimer. I think if Downey Jr. doesn't get it, that would be very surprising. Ryan Gosling for his performance of Ken and Barbie, which is just hilarious. Mark Ruffalo for Poor Things, which I was really happy about. I wasn't sure if Mark Ruffalo was going to get in. I don't know, maybe a snub is Willem Dafoe in Poor Things. I think he's very good, but I think Mark Ruffalo would deserve it more over Willem Dafoe, so I'm happy about that. I think people were a little surprised by Sterling K. Brown being in this, but he's a great performer. I can't wait to see American Fiction and see him and Jeffrey Wright really show their best. So yeah, a pretty solid category. I do think Robert Downey Jr. will win it in the end. Pretty cool seeing Ryan Gosling as Ken being nominated at every award thing. It's just hilarious how he gives such a serious and hilarious performance and just all well-rounded in the Barbie movie. Next was actress in a leading role. And I think this is the one that people are maybe most upset by. And I do somewhat agree. I get it. So I'll read the nominees first. Annette Bening for Nyad, a movie I haven't seen. It's on Netflix, I think. People are not happy that Annette Bening is getting the nomination, so that's one, very obvious thing that I think a lot of people are agreeing on, like, what? Why? And then after her, who I think the person that's going to win the award, Lily Gladstone, Killers of the Flower Moon. She was just remarkable in that performance. Her probably career best, and she just really brought together the whole film. Sandra Huller for Anatomy of a Fall, also very good. Carey Mulligan for Maestro. Emma Stone and Poor Things, really enjoyed Poor Things. I thought that was just such a interesting movie. Like I said last week, that was kind of what Barbie should have been for me. No Margot Robbie and no Greta Lee. The Greta Lee one I do think was very up in the air. I think she's phenomenal in Past Lives, but a very competitive category, and someone was going to be snubbed, and I thought if someone's going to get snubbed, it'll probably be Greta Lee for Annette Bening, which really disappointed me because I think she deserved it. And the big snub that people were pretty upset about online was no Margot Robbie, who, carried the Barbie film. Again, another movie with a crazy ensemble of people that everybody knows, and she has to remain the focal point and be the emotional weight of the film. We see, and I have it pulled up, Ryan Gosling's statement talking about Margot and Greta Gerwig, who we'll get to, being snubbed. Here's what Ryan said. He's extremely honored to be nominated by his colleagues for such remarkable artists, and I never thought I'd be saying this, but I'm also incredibly honored and proud that it's for portraying a plastic doll named Ken. But there is no Ken without Barbie, and there is no Barbie movie without Greta Gerwig and Margot Robbie, the two people most responsible for this history-making, globally celebrated film. No recognition would be possible for anyone on this film without their talent, grit, and genius. To say that I'm disappointed that they are not nominated in their respective categories would be an understatement. I can't remember the last time someone had their co-star was snubbed for nominations and they put out a statement saying how thankful they are, but were really upset. And I think you can see he's probably pretty upset in that statement. I mean, he says, having said that, I'm very happy for America Ferrera, who was nominated for supporting actress. Margot Robbie not being nominated really speaks to the irony of that situation, how there's this movie about Barbie and it's all about, just Ken. And it's just funny that in real life, everyone's forgetting about the lead actress of the film and just focusing on the guy that's in it, Ken. There's some really scary irony in that. Maybe art imitates life, life imitates art. So I feel for Margot Robbie. I think she should have been nominated, and again, I think sometimes we take performers for granted because they're just so good in every performance they have that when it seems like, they're not really doing that much, they didn't have that much to do, they were good. Yeah, they were good when they're actually working their butt off and they're giving a stellar performance. And I think that's the case with Margot Robbie. She was really good. So very, very surprising for me. Actress in a supporting role. This was kind of, I was very confused going into this one. I really didn't know who to expect. I feel like there was a lot of great supporting actresses this year, and for me it could kind of be anyone, but I think the winner was not who I think the winner will be, was nominated. So here are the nominees. Emily Blunt for Oppenheimer, very good. Danielle Brooks, The Color Purple, have not seen. America Ferrera, Barbie, she was very good. Jodie Foster and Nyad, haven't seen, but people are very surprised. So I don't know. I'll watch the movie. And same with Annette Bening. I feel like I'm giving them a lot of grief, but I feel like the movies haven't been that talked about, Nyad. So it's surprising. It's certainly a choice. People are very intrigued. And who I think will be the winner, deservedly, is Divine Joy Randolph for The Holdovers. I think she was phenomenal in that movie. She deserves all the success that's coming to her because I think she's obviously been in other stuff. It's not like it was probably her first film, but I think she's going to get a lot of offers to be in very great projects after The Holdovers. So good for her. I think, I don't know, for me there wasn't really any surprises. Those were probably the 5 people that deserved to be it. I don't know who else there could have been. I think it's up to Emily Blunt and Davine Joy Randolph. Who's going to win? I think it will be Davine Joy Randolph. So that's kind of it for the performers. I think overall, lots of, deserved performances that deserve to be celebrated, but definitely for me, some snubs. I'd say my biggest ones are Zac Efron and Margot Robbie, with Greta Lee just behind. I think those 3 for me this year. I was really surprised that none of them got recognition for their work. It's pretty crazy, especially Margot Robbie, who is a producer on the film as well and really put the work in. And then on top of that, she gives such a fantastic performance. So Best Animated Feature, and I've seen a few of these, so I was pretty excited to see them nominated. The Boy and the Heron, I thought was really good. Elemental, Nimona, Robot Dreams, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. I will say the only surprise I have in this is the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie, Mutant Mayhem, not being nominated. That was a bit of a surprise because I think the animation style was so just different to what we've seen. And I mean, credit to Spider-Verse, the first movie, I think the animation style really blew up the industry with people don't want to just see conventional animation, Disney, like we see in all of their films, where they kind of just have the same animation in most of their films. So I'm a little surprised that Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was not nominated, because not only was it a stellar film, but the creativity behind it was really something else. I mean, all the humans, how they looked in it. Yeah, so that was one I'm surprised with. I really don't know what the winner will be. I think it's The Boy and the Heron and probably Spider-Verse. I think it's between those two. I wouldn't be surprised if it was The Boy and the Heron. It won the Golden Globe. I think, yeah, it could be The Boy and the Heron taking it home. And next is cinematography. This is a category I am kind of invested in cinematography. I know nothing about cinematography, but I always look at how movies look when I go and watch them. I don't know why. And I know, again, I'm not an expert on any of this stuff. Nothing. Like, I've taken film classes, but that doesn't make me a filmmaker or any informed opinion. This is just my audio journal. So cinematography, it's something I care about, but I know nothing about. So the nominees: El Conde, Edward Lockman, Killers of the Flower Moon, Rodrigo Prieto, Maestro, Matthew Libatek, Oppenheimer, Hoyt van Hoytema, Poor Things, Robbie Ryan. For me, this is actually could be a very competitive category. Not that others aren't, but I think this one, it's tough to see a front runner. I think Oppenheimer and Poor Things are probably my two favorites. I think Poor Things was really interestingly shot. So, and I think just the diversity of different shots and color palettes that we see in the film could give it the edge. But also Oppenheimer, I think the whole black and white, subjective versus, color objective points of view, and flashbacks, flash forwards, very interesting. I think how they shot that movie. And yeah, I think it's between Poor Things and Oppenheimer of who's going to take that home. I mean, Hoyt van Hoytema, great cinematographer. He's been working with Nolan for a long time now. I'm not sure when his first movie was. Maybe Dark Knight Rises or Interstellar. I can't remember. Great. I think Robbie Ryan, who did Poor Things, will be someone to keep, paying attention to. I'm not sure what other films he's done. Maybe he's done something massive that I don't know about. I'll have to look him up after. But yeah, Poor Things, absolutely gorgeous film. Costume design. So we have Barbie, Jacqueline Duran, Killers of the Flower Moon, Jacqueline West. Oh, two Jacquelines. Napoleon, Janty Yates, and Dave Crossman. Oppenheimer, Ellen Morojnik. Poor Things, Holly Waddington. I feel like I've heard of Holly Waddington. Let me Google her. Oh, okay. So she did Poor Things, Lady Macbeth, War Horse, Clash of the Titans. Yeah, okay. She's done some pretty big projects. That's cool. Good for her. She did a Lincoln, assistant costume designer. That's very cool. Atonement. That's a good one. Where do I think this is going to go? I think Barbie was really funny because like all of the costumes were based on old Barbie dolls. So that was really cool to see all those come to life. Perhaps the most unique one was Poor Things. I think a lot of, Holly Waddington did some great work in Poor Things. I think all of the clothing is very, is it steampunk? Is that the right word? I don't know. It's very cool. I think Poor Things could get that. Man, I feel like Poor Things is actually going to win some major awards here. But next up, a big one, directing. And this was another major snub category that people were very shocked by. I think the directing category. I'll say the nominees first. So we have Anatomy of a Fall, Justin Triet; Killers of the Flower Moon, Martin Scorsese; Oppenheimer, Christopher Nolan; Poor Things, Yorgos Lanthimos; The Zone of Interest, Jonathan Glazer. You will notice I did not say Greta Gerwig Barbie, which I feel like, for me, I would say this is a snub. I think that movie has such a crazy ensemble, and there's songs in it, there's dance numbers, there's also very intimate, one-on-one scenes. There's just a lot in that world that needs to be directed, and I think Greta Gerwig did a great job tying that all together. So that was a major surprise. Not to say that any of the others didn't deserve it. I think the one people were very surprised by, Not that it was a bad film, actually. I'm seeing it on Saturday night, and I'm very excited to go see this. The Zone of Interest, Jonathan Glazer getting in. I think people were not expecting that. They thought maybe it was a possibility, but they thought, oh, for sure, Greta Gerwig's going to get in. So yeah, very, very surprising that both Margot Robbie and Greta Gerwig, who were kind of the creative voices and forces behind Barbie, are both snubbed for their categories. But good for all of these nominees. I mean, I've seen them all except Zone of Interest. I'm seeing tomorrow night, and I'm so excited. Maybe I'll talk about it a bit next week, or I'll give a full review. I think as a history student, I've been looking forward to that movie since I saw like that first trailer, and it's really only been doing festivals and had very limited releases so far. So I'm excited to go see it. I'm going to see it with my friend Seamus, who I see pretty much every movie with. If it's not my girlfriend, I go see it with Seamus or alone. We have very similar tastes, and he's very interested in historical things as well. He reads lots of stuff, and he knows stuff about everything. Next up is documentary feature film. I don't think I've seen any of these. Directing. I should probably say my prediction. I think it will be Christopher Nolan for Oppenheimer. That movie is just so amazingly shot. I think, credit to Yorgos Lanthimos as well, and it'll be interesting to see what happens. Maybe Marty Scorsese gets it for Killers of the Flower Moon. It's up in the air, but I think it is Christopher Nolan's if I had to pick one. Documentary feature film nominees: Bobby Wine, The People's President, The Eternal Memory, Four Daughters, To Kill a Tiger, 20 Days in Mariupol. I haven't seen any of these. Maybe I'll check out some. I mean, the Oscars are until March 10th, so I do feel like I still have tons of time to watch all of these. Maybe I'll talk about some of them when I recap the Oscars after March 10th. I enjoy documentaries. I do enjoy documentaries. It's not that like I'm a snob and only watch like two different types of things. I do love documentaries, so I would be excited to go and find these and watch them. Documentary short film. I have not seen any of these either. The ABCs of Book Banning, The Barber of Little Rock, Island in Between, The Last Repair Shop, and Nai Nai and Wai Pao, I think is how you say that. I'm sorry if I'm butchering that. I probably am. Then film editing nominees: Anatomy of a Fall. Yeah, that was very well put together, that movie. It felt very well edited, especially with all of because it's it's a trial film. So you can't reveal too much. You need to decide what's too much and how to hold back and keep the audience not in the know of the truth. The Holdovers, love that movie. Love that movie so much. Killers of the Flower Moon, awesome. Oppenheimer, phenomenally edited. I think that's the clear winner for me. And then Poor Things. I think Oppenheimer is just so well edited. Like, just because you have all of the shots of, the science going on in his head and stuff like that. I think if Oppenheimer doesn't win Best Editing, I would be very surprised. I think Jennifer Lame deserves it for bringing that together, especially because she has to keep the narrative alive while flashing back, flashing forward, going through all the different parts of Robert Oppenheimer's life and the building of the bomb and the repercussions and his trial after that. Also all the Strauss stuff and all these different perspectives to cut together, especially with the black and white and the color, keeping all these hard edits and stuff. Yeah, it's just a gorgeously edited film. I think Oppenheimer could definitely take it. Yeah, this was a difficult year. There were so many career bests from people. I think Oppenheimer might be like the magnum opus of Nolan's career, possibly. It was just so phenomenal. We'll see in like 5 years whether it's as remembered for as The Dark Knight or Interstellar or whatever. We'll see. I think in 5 years we'll see how everybody reflects on these, or 10 years. International feature film, from Italy you have Io Capitano. Japan, Perfect Days. Spain, the movie we're going to talk about today, Society of the Snow. Germany, The Teacher's Lounge. And the United Kingdom, The Zone of Interest, which is nominated for International Feature Film. Can't wait to see that tomorrow, like I said. And I watched Society of the Snow. We'll talk about that after the Oscar nominations. Makeup and hairstyling, we have Golda, Maestro, Oppenheimer, Poor Things, Society of the Snow. Probably, I think it's got to be Poor Things. They did all that stuff with Willem Dafoe's head and all the different, crazy. Poor Things is nuts. Like it really is nuts. So I'd be very surprised if it didn't win. After makeup and hairstyling, we have music, original score. And I love listening to movie scores when I'm working, when I'm writing, for school, stuff like that. That's my ultimate background sound when I'm trying to think. So we have American Fiction, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, Killers of the Flower Moon, Oppenheimer, and Poor Things. Interesting. Some very strong contenders. I was very surprised Indiana Jones was in here, but John Williams, any project he does gets nominated. I feel like at this point, it's sometimes, I'll be honest, I think sometimes it's not deserved. I don't think the Indiana Jones score was anything special, so I was surprised when I saw, oh, Indiana Jones on the Dial of Destiny got an Oscar nomination. I think it has to be Ludwig Göransson for Oppenheimer. I think I've listened to that score 100 or more times. I absolutely love it. Poor Things was always a very interesting score as well. I think that was a very interesting sound to that movie. Then we have original song music, The Fire Inside from Flamin' Hot, I'm Just Ken. It Never Went Away, a song for my people Wazeze. I'm sorry saying that. I'm probably saying that wrong. I'm sorry. From Killers of the Flower Moon. What Was I Made For? I think I really don't know where that's going to go. I think it would be really funny if I'm Just Ken won, because that's crazy. And I think there actually was a snub in this category. I was very surprised that Dance the Night, I'm a huge Dua Lipa fan, and Dance the Night not nominated was crazy for me, because I actually think, I don't know, I think What Was I Made For actually isn't that impressive of a song. I feel like it sounds like every other Billie Eilish song, and I think Dance the Night just went so well with the disco party that Barbie's hosting, and the record scratch when she says, "Do you guys ever think about dying?" But I mean, we'll see which way this goes. It'll probably be What Was I Made For? And here is a big category, a big one, huge. Best Picture: American Fiction, Anatomy of a Fall, Barbie, The Holdovers, Killers of the Flower Moon, Maestro, Oppenheimer, Past Lives, Poor Things, The Zone of Interest. I don't think there's any surprises in this. I think probably most people, if they were to predict, what do you think the best pictures will be, you probably would have got like 10 out of 10, 100% on that. And this is a tough one to call. I think it will be Oppenheimer. I don't really know what movie. I wouldn't be shocked if Anatomy of a Fall somehow pulled it off. That would be pretty crazy. But I do think it will be Oppenheimer Best Picture. Man, just reading that list, it's absolutely crazy. The movies that came out this year and just the amount of talent that was on display this year. I mean, you got Marty Scorsese, friggin' Greta Gerwig, and Christopher Nolan. Oh my God, just it's so wild. What a year we've had, and now 2024 is also going to have some massive projects to look forward to. I do think Oppenheimer, I'll lock it in. That's my Best Picture nomination. Production design: Barbie, Killers of the Flower Moon, Napoleon, Oppenheimer, Poor Things. This is a difficult one because, like, production design, Oppenheimer did so much, and Barbie both did so many real sets of like building places. Oppenheimer filmed on a lot of real locations where, things from the story actually happened. Production design, though, I could see Poor Things pulling this off because it's just such a wonky, different world in that film. I think it's very up in the open. Napoleon had massive battles, so that's a lot of production design as well. It's a lot of sets to build. It's a lot of things to decorate, a lot of things to set up. I mean, didn't Barbie also make the world run out of pink paint or whatever that was, or the company that was making it, which is that's hilarious. So yeah, I really enjoy, I will say this, a lot of the categories, I like that every category isn't just a clear winner. This year, I think there is a lot of categories where people could be surprised. People really could go into it not knowing what's going to happen. So that's one really fun thing when the Oscars come around or award season comes around, is it's not always a clear winner. Some years it is very boring and it's clear who's going to win in every single category, or people just don't care about those categories. But this could be a very interesting night. And then finally we have, or not finally, but animated short film. There's Letter to a Pig, 95 Senses, Our Uniform, Pachyderm, I'm not sure how to say that. War is Over, inspired by the music of John and Yoko. Live action short film, we have The After, Invincible, Night of Fortune, Red, White, and Blue, The Wonderful Story of Henry Sugar, which is Wes Anderson. I was talking about that last week, that you can check those out on Netflix. He has all the Roald Dahl, I think it's Roald Dahl, short films that he's done, or the stories. Best sound, the creator. I am very happy that was nominated. I think that movie sounded amazing. Maestro, Mission Impossible, Dead Reckoning Part 1, Oppenheimer, The Zone of Interest. It might just be Oppenheimer because finally Nolan puts out a movie where his dialogue isn't just inaudible and the sound's just completely taking over. You can actually hear the performers speaking in this, which was nice. I'm not sure where sound's gonna go. I think Maestro, of course, is a musical movie. It's not a musical, but it's about composing music. So that could be interesting. Mission Impossible I was kind of surprised by. I mean, I guess I think all the Mission Impossible movies, apart from 2, sound great, and especially these last 3 or 2, directed by Chris McQuarrie. He I don't know, something about his production. When he's directing a film, there's very good production behind it, and I think sound goes into that. I think Oppenheimer might be the winner here, just because of all the fusion sounds or fission sounds and stuff like that, and the music going along with that. It almost feels like the movie almost feels like one long take, or like a long musical score. It doesn't feel like there's any massive hard cuts for me. Yeah, another very competitive category, which is nice. Visual effects, we have The Creator, Godzilla -1, which I'm yet to see, but I want to see so bad. Oh my god. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, very happy that's in there. Mission Impossible, Dead Reckoning Part 1, and Napoleon. Yeah, visual effects, I think it was a very good... Actually, it was a very good year for visual effects. There were some movies that were, they could take the lazy option and just do everything with really bad visual effects and CGI, but I think this was actually a very strong year for visual effects. I mean, we have a Marvel movie, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, that looked very good, and the CGI was phenomenal in it. The Creator, just crazy visual effects in that. I don't know. I don't know which way this one's going to go, but another very competitive category that I'm very happy that it's another competitive category. All right, 2 more. We have writing, but adapted screenplay. So we have American Fiction, Barbie, Oppenheimer, Poor Things, The Zone of Interest. Barbie was like kind of a controversial one being adapted screenplay because it's not adapting a book. It's just adapting like a former property or a property in general. I don't know if it's an IP, I guess. And sure, there's been Barbie movies in the past, but the movie's not building like on a sequel or adapting a book or whatever. So anyways, a very interesting category. I think Oppenheimer could win that. Especially because his screenplay, he wrote it all in the first person of Oppenheimer, so that could be very interesting just because of how different it is. Finally, the last one, I'm kind of just running through these because I don't know, some of them you just don't really have an opinion about. You're like, yeah, these were all good movies, or well, I haven't seen any of these because it's like a documentary short film, like where would I find that near me? Anyways, the final category, writing, original screenplay. We have Anatomy of a Fall, The Holdovers, Maestro, May December, and Past Lives. Yeah, it's good to see May December got one. I guess I didn't really mention it, but yeah, snubs. I mean, Charles Melton, Natalie Portman, and Julianne Moore. All 3 of them, I could have seen all 3 of them, maybe making the nomination, especially Charles Melton. Shout out Riverdale fans. I watched season 1 and 2, and ironically kind of liked it and then stopped watching it. Yeah, Charles Melton could have been a snub, but it's nice to see May December. I think it was a pretty good movie. I'm happy to see it got at least one nomination, for a movie that popular and doing that well, and I think it was actually very well made. It did deserve some recognition. This is a tough category to call as well. I mean, Anatomy of a Fall it's a very interesting story and a very good screenplay. But I think Past Lives might actually take it. I think that is just such a great story with so many layers to it. Celine Song did phenomenally with that. So there you go. That's the 2024 nominations for the 96th Academy Awards. You can catch the Oscars on Sunday, March 10th, 2024. So that's in 5 weeks. I'll definitely be tuning into that. I'm going to do a recap episode the week following it, after I have a few days to digest what happened on the Sunday night. So you can catch that. That'll be March probably 17th. It'll be coming out on the 19th. Not only am I going to talk about the Oscars this week, but as I said, I'm going to talk about Society of the Snow, which I watched on Netflix last Sunday. I'll give a little synopsis. If you haven't seen it, I highly suggest you pause this, go watch it. It's about 2 hours and 20 minutes. It's really riveting. I think it's a true story, and I think it's something that people should watch. It's something that really pulls you in. So, Society of the Snow, in Spanish, La Sociedad de la Nieve. It's a 2023 survival thriller film directed by J.A. Bayana, centered around the Uruguayan 1972 Andes flight disaster. So again, this is a real story, and this movie is an adaptation of Pablo Vierchi's book of the same name, which, I mean, I'm going to say spoilers because this is a true story, and if you haven't heard about it, you're going to, because it's a real-life event that happened, 50 years ago or whatever. The movie documents the accounts of all 16 survivors of the crash, many of whom Vierchi, the guy who wrote the book, actually knew from childhood. The cast is made up of Uruguayan and Argentine actors, most of whom were newcomers. So here's the Google synopsis. I'm not going to reveal everything that happens in the movie, but, spoilers. Right now, if you don't want to hear anything, pause this, go watch it, and then come back and listen. But here's a short synopsis. In 1972, a Uruguayan flight crashes into the remote heart of the Andes, forcing survivors to become each other's best hope. I will say, here's a warning about the movie. If you don't do well with kind of graphic things, you don't like blood or injuries, stuff like that, people getting very skinny because they don't have food, stuff like that. If you don't do well with that kind of stuff, this will be a very tough watch for you. It is a very technically impressive film. Just how it's shot, the crash itself, how they show it in the film is so well done. It's so well done. It kind of goes in slow motion, and I feel like that kind of reflects how maybe the crash is playing in all the survivors' heads. They just see it all the time, and they remember it almost in slow motion because, sometimes you live through things that really bring your adrenaline up, and if it's happy things, sometimes you just black out and you don't remember because you were just so excited in the moment. But I think with trauma and a lot of terrifying things that happen, you remember every detail and it's impossible for you to forget. And I think that the crash probably plays in these survivors. I'm not sure how many of them are still alive because they'd be a little older now, probably in their 60s or 70s. This crash probably plays in their heads a lot. And I think the decision to make the crash kind of a slow motion showing of, all the seats crashing together, of the injuries that would happen with that kind of impact, it's really not suppressing the reality of the situation. Before the plane even stopped after crashing, a lot of people were already dead and gruesomely injured. Very technically impressive film. I believe they actually shot on location. They had set up a base camp in a very remote mountain somewhere, and kudos to the director for doing that, because that's a very impressive thing to do, that he went and did it. They didn't just do it in, a box on a set and with the volume or whatever. And sometimes when, survival films come out that are telling a true story, sometimes it is okay to adapt films and trim the truth to make it more believable. I mean, no shame against it. The Iron Claw took a brother out of the movie because the director was just worried that people wouldn't believe the tragedy. And yeah, sometimes you need to change a movie for the big screen. And, how accurate is Society of the Snow? Apparently, the movie is the most accurate retelling of the Andes disaster, and the director said he just wanted to make it like a documentary almost, and he had interviewed survivors for hours. So kudos to him, because he, tells the story as accurate as possible, I guess, and it's very believable the whole time. You are there. I mean, you don't believe this is happening to people, but it is. It's never like, oh, that would never happen. Who would do that? It's every step of the way. You yourself as the viewer are faced with a decision, and in your head you're saying what you would do, and maybe you want to do the right thing, but sometimes you have to do what's just going to keep you alive in the situation. So yeah, spoiler, cannibalism is a major theme of this. They do have to eat some of their friends and loved ones that unfortunately don't survive, and that decision within that group is a major part of the story of is it worth it? Would they want this? Is it legal? Is it even illegal to eat people that unfortunately died in the accident? So yeah, there's a lot of moral hurdles in this movie that you as the viewer also need to go through, and that's what I really do enjoy, survival stories and survival films where we just get to watch humanity. It's almost like Lord of the Flies. We get to watch humanity just kind of be put in this experiment, or I don't know how to describe it, almost in a box, and you just get to see such a good summary. And this is a very, they survive in the end, 16 of them, and in the end it is kind of a happy story. And I think one one big part of the movie is when the survivors come back, they say, oh, it's a miracle. And one of them says, like, what's the miracle in this? Like, we're alive, but it's true. What is the miracle in this? Tons of people die out of 45 people that were on the plane. Only 16 survive. They had to go through terrible conditions, do things that they never thought they would have to do in their life, and that most people never have to contemplate in their own lives. They survived, but whether what they went through was a miracle, I don't think the survivors think so. They're going to be cursed by that for the rest of their lives, even though, it's very survivor's guilt. You feel bad that you made it and the ones you loved and friends and people that were on the plane didn't. And you have to live with what you went through. It's a phenomenal film. I highly suggest checking it out. It's an insane story, and then after you watch it, you can go and actually watch like real interviews on YouTube with the survivors. You can go and see the real photos, because they had a camera there and people were taking photos throughout the 71 days that they were waiting to be rescued. 71. That's insane. 71 days. I mean, Survivor used to be 39 days, and they get rice and they get whatever, They get rewards where they get food, and now it's 26 or 29 days. Imagine 71 days with absolutely nothing, and they're forced to turn to cannibalism, and it's pretty dark. Unfortunately, I watched this before I ate dinner, and I had chicken for dinner, so I had lost my appetite, considering cannibalism and seeing human flesh being cut up right before my dinner. So that was not great. But overall, I think, it has an Oscar nomination, and I think it deserved it. It was a really impressive film. And I saw one Letterboxd review that said if this was an American movie, it would have 6 Oscar nominations. And I could see that. It is very well done, very well acted. And as Wikipedia said, a lot of these actors were new performers that aren't very experienced. And I just want to give a particular shout out to one performer. I have some specific praise for him, Enzo Vergincic, who I think that's how you say his Enzo Vogrincic. Sorry, he's from Uruguay, but he's actually Slovenian, and I'm part Slovenian, so shout out to him. But he plays Numa, who is kind of our anchor in the film. He is our main character that we're following. He's the narrator. And I think he's so phenomenal in this, and he has a lot to do, because he is us if we were in the situation. He is hesitant about cannibalism at first. He's really going through a moral crisis of what are we all doing this for? What do I bring to the group? How am I helping us survive? It's just phenomenally. He has a lot to do. He looks like a little Adam Driver in this. It's actually, you should look him up, because he does kind of look like Adam Driver, especially in the movie, how his hair is styled. A few times I was like, who is this guy? Is that Adam Driver's long lost son or something like that? Do we not know something? Overall, really good film. I think people should watch it. A really great viewing, and I would recommend it to everyone I know. I've recommended it, to my parents. They watch tons of movie. I've recommended to them, and it's actually not the first movie about this plane crash. There was a movie in 1993 called Alive, had like Ethan Hawke in it, and it was American performers. I watched some clips of it. Doesn't really look that good. It looks a little bit goofy and, low budget. Very 90s, but yeah, it's based on a true story, and I think this new movie just has maybe in 20 years we'll look back and be like, wow, that looks terrible, but I think it's just technically way more, probably way more impressive, which isn't fair to the 1993 one, because it was 1993, but just how it's telling it, and the acting is just so stellar in this movie. And just to wrap it up, I have 2 Letterboxd reviews for Society of the Snow. 5 stars. I'm never complaining about anything ever again. Yeah, the whole time I'm watching, I'm like, wow, I really do whine about stuff where, if I was put in a situation like that, I would not have as much hope as these people did, or, I would not be as chipper as they are in certain times. Another 5-star review. Crash scene was worse than any Saw movie. Yeah, again, if you don't do well with graphic things, the crash does show like breaking bones and blood, so just a little bit of a content warning. It's pretty gruesome to watch. Keep that in mind if you're going to watch. I gave it 4.5 stars, and I stand by that. I think that'll do it for episode 2, everybody. Thank you for listening. Lots of big news this week. Looking forward to seeing how the next, week unwraps with more news coming out. I think Sundance is on right now, so there's lots of movies being shown. I think next week I'll check out Masters of the Air, which is an Apple Plus show with Barry Keoghan, Austin Butler. I think maybe we'll talk about episodes 1 to 3 of that because that's all that's out right now. And I am seeing The Zone of Interest tomorrow, so I think we'll talk about that. Yeah, next week, Masters of the Air, episode 1 to 3 in Zone of Interest. I think that could be a good episode. If something else comes up, maybe I'll change it. You can find this podcast, Watcher of All Things, on Spotify, Amazon Music, Acast, Apple Podcasts. You can leave a rating and a review. It greatly helps the show. It helps it grow. You can email the show at watcherofallthings@gmail.com. You can also watch this. Maybe you're watching it on YouTube. You can watch it on YouTube. Leave a like, subscribe. You can comment. Write to me. I want to hear from you. What did you think of the Oscar nominations? Were you surprised? Or you think there was major snubs? What were you really happy about? Was there a certain performer or a certain category that you were really looking forward to in someone or a movie you really liked got nominated? You can find me on Letterboxd, Kiki J70. So that's KIKIJ70. Thank you for listening, and I hope you have a phenomenal rest of the week.